in corridors. There are some projects finished, as I mentioned to you, like Costa project, also like Mid-Atlantic Eco-Bonus project, like the Game for Moss project, that really have at the end also they demand green corridors and demand also shift from modes of transport, not that doesn't pollute too much compared with railway or compared with motorways of the city. The second concern, it's I already mentioned it in several fora, either in Brussels, either there in Portugal. It's the case of the operation, port operation contracts, because there is the duality. There is a duality, and this new directive concerning the concessions, so in general terms, I mean the directive 23 of 2014, really it applies only to port contracts of port concessions, not to all port operation port operations activities. It means that we can have here a very big lack of competition. To finish, I want to thank to José for everything that he has done during the 22 or 23 years. We are very serious on the commission, which he was really very much appreciated from all of us, from the administration sector. So thanks. I hope that you can follow, we can account with your advice, even that I'm older and some hair, white hair. So anyway, we count on you also to assist and help us. Also, I want to wish successful to Wojtek. Hope that even this method related with the sea are not very easy. Anyway. So I hope that I'm also from the sea, as José told, now with rail situations, and I know it's quite much better than the rail sector and road sector. I hope that anyway that you can enjoy the shipping sector and that we are also very much welcome from our community. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks, Charlie. It was not a post-mortem speech, so thank you very much for your support. And now, I mean, all these business cannot be done without resources. The man that is responsible for setting the strategic vision and how to use best resources on the CEF for transport development. Stefan Waki is the head of unit for CEF. And what is your fancy name of your unit? It's an investment strategy.
Yeah. Thank you, José. Very good to be with all of you here today to make a brief presentation of where we stand. I guess that is going to work. Yes, it's going to work. Second attempt. Okay, excellent. So we'll make a brief presentation of where we stand on funding and financing in this financing period. You know the tools that are available at EU level. We have the Connecting Europe facility, which is basically traditional grants and more financial instruments. And we have now more and more blending financial instruments, products like FC, which is the investment plan for Europe. So everything that is not grants, with grant money, and we are trying more and more to do this. So where do we stand in the implementation? Very briefly, we had a very successful first call where we allocated close to 13 billion euros. We just evaluated a second call. Member states have now to confirm the proposal of the Commission that Commissioner Bulc announced on Friday, and we propose to select about 6.7 billion euros of money out of the 7.5 that were available. But more and more, as you know, we are spending money in the form of financial instruments. We've been also quite active in the maritime field, in particular with the green shipping proposal that we took us about 2 years to put together with our colleagues of the European Investment Bank. And I have the pleasure to announce that on Thursday in the EIB board on the 16th of June, 2 green shipping instruments were approved by the board, one under the Connecting Europe Facility financial instruments, and one under the FC. I will come back to that later, because this indeed is a massive success for demultiplying the impact of our EU funding in the maritime sector. The outcome, more precisely, of the 2015 call, I mean, generally, as I said, we have been also oversubscribed. For the MOS call, 12 proposals were selected under the general envelope for an amount of 88 million euros, and 1 proposal was selected under the cohesion envelope for an amount of 1 million euros. There will be a third call that will be launched at the end of September. The amounts are not precise yet at this stage. My commissioner will reflect in the coming weeks what to put between the different priorities, but here I will not, I would say, break a big secret to say that, of course, Motorways of the Sea will be part of the priorities that my commissioner will push forward for a call to be launched towards the end of September, with a deadline by the end of January 2017. But like I said, more and more we are trying to do projects that are combining the different instruments, in particular the FC. FC has been quite successful so far for transport. We have 12 transport projects that actually happened. This represents 8.5 billion euros of investments and an impact in jobs of 60,000 jobs created. You can see on the map here where these projects are located across Europe. And more precisely, here you have in red, in the list of the projects that have been selected, those that concern the maritime sector. As you can see, we have quite a number of them that concern your sector. Again, I already mentioned the green shipping facility that went through the IB board last week. But we have also a certain number of fleet renewal projects in Spain, accessibility of port infrastructure, mostly rail, but also a bit of road for port infrastructure, again in Spain, a Euromed Ro-Ro project in Italy. All these projects, of course, are a good beginning, but we need now to scale up the possibilities offered under FC, and therefore encourage you to come and talk to us or to the colleagues of the European Investment Bank if you have a project that could benefit from it. At the same time, the FC is financing participation in sector fund, multi-sector funds. Some of them, of course, are making big investments also in the maritime sector, and therefore we have now, I would say, an instrument that is starting to deliver also for transport and for the maritime sector. An example here that is worth mentioning is the accessibility of port infrastructure. Of course, some of these projects, you see all the ports that are concerned, some of these projects are helped also by our grants under the CEF. So more and more indeed what we will be doing is blend the CEF grant component, and that is also valid for the third call, and the possibilities offered under FC. But again, this will happen on a case-by-case basis. The CEF FC is work in progress. Of course, we are testing different instruments. We are trying more and more to show the added value of the Connecting Europe Facility in piloting projects and schemes that have been difficult to put in place in the past, in particular the deployment of alternative fuels in the maritime sector. This is why we spend quite a lot of time with the IB on the green shipping facility, on which I will say a couple of words now. So the scheme was approved by the bank on the 16th in the form of 2 schemes, one under the Connecting Europe Facility for the Netherlands and another one for Spain in the context of FC. The idea was that the one that we are piloting with the CEF in the Netherlands will be then scaled up under the FC, where of course the means of intervention are much greater, and this has already happened basically at the same time. Of course, now we need to find good projects to finance under the schemes. The colleagues of the EIB will be now talking to the sector, and of course the goal here is to accelerate the deployment of environmental investment in the maritime sector. So more information about it to tell you how this has been set up into practice. I can give you more information if you're interested, if you contact me and my team more directly. But basically here we are working through your partners in terms of commercial banks. It was thought by us to be easier to proceed in that way instead of reinventing the wheel and creating new, I would say, partnerships. And the guarantee of the EIB is given then for 2 the part of the funding that concerns the environmental part, let's say, in retrofitting or buying new vessels. It's a risk-sharing framework agreement. The commercial banks, your partners, will be the contact points for dealing with you as beneficiaries. The EIB, of course, is backed up by the EU budget, otherwise it would be difficult for them to extend this type of guarantee mechanism, and we have determined with the EIB that up to 3 billion euros of investment could benefit for these schemes that, like I said, has been already approved by the EIB board last week. More and more we are turning towards blending, and this in particular will be important in the context of the next call. Blending has proven its value in some, again, of projects that touch upon the maritime sector, in particular the Port of Calais and Dublin, in the call that we evaluated last year in July 2015, 2 projects on which we provided grant support to allow for an EIB loan to be granted, or a project bond initiative project to be granted. This, of course, is very important for us because it allows us to demultiply the impact of a limited budget when it comes to grants by helping to deploy a much greater amount of money in terms of investment. Of course, to help you to do all this, we realize that all this, I would say, combination of different instruments may be a bit daunting. The possibility also to engage between commercial banks with the EIB and structuring projects differently may be difficult. This is why we are financing the advisory hub at the EIB to help you with project ideas that you may have, how to structure it better, and I encourage you to contact directly the hub in case you have such a project. So I will just summarize now in order not to be too long. The key messages, of course, is that SEF grants are remaining part of the picture, of course, but they are limited, and therefore we need to be using this SEF grant in a more innovative way. The way we would like now to go is to try to use better this financial instrument and the possibility of blending grants with financial instruments. And we have also developed new tools that operationalize this concept of utilizing these new tools, such as the green shipping. So we remain, of course, open to discuss any project you will have, and I will conclude by putting here my name, my email address, and also a few websites for our partners in the EIB, but also for our executive agency, in case you will need more information about the grants, the calls, and also the schemes such as FC and green shipping that the EIB is doing in partnership with us. Thank you very much.
Smart money is never too long, so you were just in time. So thank you very much. This concludes our institutional session, the first part. If there is any question that cannot wait, I can still allow one question, then we'll move for the industrial stakeholder session, where we'll have Grimaldi lines, Stena lines, and the Greek Ship Owners Association. So that would be the two. Any question? What is your bank account? Remember? That one, you go to the website and it will be. Well, thank you very much. Institutionalists, regulators, thank you very much for the support to Motors of the Sea. We will now go to the industrial stakeholders. Thank you. So could I call on Manuel Grimaldi, please? Who is the managing director of the Grimaldi Group, and he is the CEO and president of Green Lines, and he's also the co-president of the So, Manuel, please. Welcome. Thank you very much. And could you please step in? Yeah, whatever you want. We have Niklas Martinsson, who is the deputy CEO of Stena Line. And we have the Port of Venice, and we have Karanafos Simandonis. Could you go to see? Who is the CEO of the Greek, and he's representing the Atlantic Short Sea Ship Owners Association, plural, so both the passengers and the cargo. Okay, gentlemen, we will start now the industrial stakeholder session, and we will start with Dr. Grimaldi. giving us his address. Will you speak from your chair?
Hello. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emanuele Grimaldi. I'm the president of the Italian Shipowner Association and also the managing director of Grimaldi Lines. I wish to thank Joao, Mr. Simpson, for inviting me here. It's a great privilege and a pleasure to be here and to speak to you. The motorways of this year. We all say, that it is quite desirable, it is important, that it's very good from also the environmental aspects. But often people are saying, that they didn't develop sufficient. We are not happy because there should be more volume should go via sea, perhaps only a small part. But most of the time, when I was talking to these people who sometimes, I must say, even in Italy, there is not the perception in our country of what the motorways of the sea are. I have heard sometimes in Italy saying, but we should develop the motorway of the sea because they are moving too little. And they're only counting the tons transported, perhaps by land and by sea. But for every transportation by sea, in tons, there is 2-3 transportation by road. Because before and after you transport, so to make a statistics of tons transported by land and by sea, it doesn't mean anything. First of all, because when we transport from Palermo to Genoa, we are transporting for over 1,000 kilometers, whilst perhaps the distribution that happens 3 times, so 3 tons are moved by land, is only for 10 kilometers. So I think there is a very wrong perception of motorways of the sea. And most of the statistics are not addressing seriously the issue of the development of motorways of the sea. And I must say that in some of these cases, I made a trial. And I have asked some of the big journalists, sometimes even to big shipowners and brokers, what they thought were the numbers of the people moving on motorway of the sea, what was the number of cars moving on motorway of the sea, and what was the number of trailers and lorries moving on motorway of the sea. You wouldn't believe the ignorance that I have found out. You wouldn't believe some of these so-called huge experts that were talking about the fact they didn't know what we were talking about. And they didn't have the slightest perception. Sometimes the mistake was not 1 time, 10 times, sometimes 100 times. Because when I said, no, I don't know the numbers, they were a bit embarrassed. And I said, but why you don't make a guess? Why you don't try, say a number? And when I asked the number was regularly either 10 times less, 100 times less. So I think we have to start with the numbers, perhaps addressing really what are the numbers of, for instance, the people moving by motorways of the sea. And when I mean motorways of the sea, I'm saying ferries that are transporting people in less than 24 hours. You wouldn't believe the number. And I think make an exercise, try to think what the number would be, and you would be really surprised. The number is 2.1 billion people. Is only 5% less than all the planes all over the world. This is huge. And when we come, for instance, to the cars, how many cars are moved on motorways of the sea? The number of cars which are built every year all over the world are, you know, I'm in car carriers as well, so I know very well this number, 74 million now. 73 last year, 72 2 years ago. But you wouldn't believe the number of cars moving on motorway of the sea are 250 million cars. 4 times more than all the cars who are built all over the world, nearly 4 times more. And then we come now to the lorries, to the environmental part of moving lorries and of course trailers mainly on motorways of the sea. There the number is huge as well. We are talking about 40 million lorries. That, just to give an example, if you put them in line, they would do 14 times the transport around the globe. So you go through the equator, you can put them all together, or 1.5 times from Earth to the moon and back. We know it's 40,000 kilometers is the equator, the circumference of the Earth. And we are talking instead of 600,000. So you get out of this, then it is a European success story or not? I think it is a European success story. 30 million out of the 30 million lorries moving on Earth, they are in the European seas. 10 million about in the Baltic, about 10 million on North Sea, slightly less than 10 million on the Mediterranean. 30 out of 40 million lorries are moving from Europe to other countries. Only 10 million left are. If you look instead for the passengers, we are slightly less than 1 billion, and 1 billion is in the Far East. 400 million is in the Mediterranean. If we talk Mediterranean is 400 million passengers, 9.7 million lorries. So the numbers are really huge. So before saying, I think this is definitely a successful story. Perhaps it's not known because we are at sea, so you don't see too much what is happening, because the shipping line are at sea. And perhaps the perception is not so big because it's extremely fragmented, but also extremely competitive. Because on most of the lines you find 2-3 operators operating on the sector. So it has been a success story. I think we have worked, and I think it's very much a European success. And of course, motorways of the seas and the inclusion of motorway of the sea in the European policy has been very important. And also, the work that you have done is very precious. I must say that this year, although I think Europe has done an extraordinary work in promoting, I was not happy to find out that this year the money was not spent. And also, I think that we are having a wrong perspective on the environmental improvement that we should do. And why is this? Mainly because we are all seeing gas as the panacea of all the problems, which I believe that is not the case. First of all, I have heard, that it is a non-fossil fuel. Gas is a fossil fuel. And I have also heard that we were just heard from the German member of parliament that I would like to thank for talking about the rescue at sea. 40 million people have been rescued, and of all the fleet in the world, the Italian fleet was the one, because we are very close to where it's happening the things, but we have rescued the highest number of people. And I think before Frontex and this new initiative of the European Commission, really some of our vessels were in a very difficult position, because sometimes with a small vessel with only 12 people on board, you had to rescue 500-600 people, and this was without preparation, without knowledge, so that was a big risk, although we have to do it and we will do it, and I think but I think we should be a bit more organized also on this sector. But coming back on the environmental issues and this gas, I don't know if people know, but the emissions are there as well. The emissions that you have with gas are very close to the same. The only, of course, you don't have the content of sulfur, you have the high content of sulfur. But I don't know if people know, but when there is, for instance, you are fueling the vessel, if you have dispersion and you don't see it because it's not black, like the fuel from the sulfur that comes out, if you have a small dispersion of 1%, that is 25 times more poisoning, or with an effect that is 5 times worse than the emission of CO2, as far as the green gas problem, and even for the heating of the planet, 25 times worse. And even when you turn a vessel of dual fuel from one fuel to the other, you might have the same thing happen. When you are fueling up a vessel, you have dispersion. When you are passing from one to the other, you have dispersion. You don't see it. You don't see the black funnel or the sulfur coming out. In any case, where we have addressed and we have invested heavily on scrubbers, last year we have been helped and assisted on this environmental effort by the European Commission. This year, although we were not advised, we have been working on this, and we have even invested in some of the most sophisticated technology which of course closed loop and more expensive. Just for one vessel, just to give you an idea, we have spent up to 7 million euro for just to address one vessel with the most sophisticated. But this was not considered, whilst it is considered only today, it seems from the result that we have seen, money has not been spent, scrubbers have not been taken into consideration, but also other projects have not been taken into consideration, and I think it's a pity, because if it is desirable to continue to develop the motorway of this sea, we have to invest some money. And I want to say, that although we might think that it is big money for the cohesion of Europe, and within, if you put this money in comparison with what Europe is spending, for instance, for the railway, is zero. We are talking of a very, very small percentage. And it doesn't look good that this very, very small percentage is not even spent, although the projects were there. And I am sure that these projects were good projects and are going in the right direction to develop motorways of this year. Still, when we say to develop motorway, we say sometimes, I don't think that basically, if it is not an environmental project, that we need to be sponsored at all. I am frightened when there is European money coming in projects, because most of the time they would distort competition, the existing competition. Because I don't see that if there is a good reason to give it for one project when there is another project that, or there is another line that is doing the same work. So I think I am very critical about the help and the assistance given to certain lines and operation, because they would only move cargo from, distort competition, move cargo and money from one to the other shipboard. So if we need an accelerator of the process, and if we need to accelerate motorways of the sea, then give the money to the operator, to our client. Give some money, which must be much less than the environmental or the external cost. So say you can count the external cost of mobility by road, for instance, and you say you assess that the cost for a lorry to go from Germany to, let's say, Finland, perhaps, just to make an example, the cost would be 200-300 euros. Then give 1/3, give 80, give something just to the operator who is choosing to go via ship. But of course this, for the whole of the society, it's a big advantage, because the society will save 200 euros. Although the European Commission might pay an eco bonus of, let's say, or Euro bonus, or whatever it is, Mare bonus, or whatever it is, but this money is much less than the environmental cost that society would pay in case of traffic, noise, and all the externality that exist by land. But this would leave the sovereignty of the customer, who can choose if he likes best to go with Stena, the FDS, Grimaldi, Finland, or whatever is the line. And I think this is very, very important too, because we cannot distort the competition, because that would be very negative, I think, for all the parties involved, and also for the owners who started first in this process of improving. Then I want to pass generally a little bit on this environmental, because shipping is always or often crucified and looked as the problem of the emission. And I want to put this into perspective. What is the total emission of the shipping sector? This again, before we speak, we have to know the numbers. The numbers is only 2.2% of the emission of CO2. So I think that, considering that we are transporting 90% of the cargo worldwide, I think that shipping is more a solution than the problem. Is the solution. So to move more cargo via sea is the solution. It's not, and should not be seen as a sector who is, of course we can do better, of course we are doing better, of course we are trying to improve on our performance. We're not only trying, we are delivering. From 2006 to today, we have reduced the externalities of about 15%, the shipping sector, and also the transport has increased instead of about 14%. So the improvement of the shipping sector from the years 2007 to today is about 30. And I also advocate all, because I repeat, gas is a type of fuel. The 0.1 is a type of fuel. The 1% is a type of fuel. Gas oil is a type of fuel. There are different types of fuel, perhaps methylene, there are other, but what we have to try to avoid or to reduce the total emissions. In other words, we have to have more effective paints. And you know that silicone paints have improved sometimes, especially in the hot water, over 10%, the performance of a ship. Then there is also retrofitting of better propellers. A better propeller can improve up to 20%. I have changed propeller with modern and very good propellers with a contract already with Rolls-Royce and other very big, also with Bars, other very big producer in Europe, which gave fantastic result. Particularly if you are reducing the speed, because every propeller is made for the particular speed and particular. So you can make a huge improvement. But also a huge improvement can be done, and I think this is very important for you to assess what are the best projects. It is retrofit on jumbo jazzing basis. Because if some of these things are done, you can have often vessels that will improve their performance with zero emission. If you are lengthening a vessel and you are having perhaps 1,000 more linear meter on a Stena vessel, from 3,000 to 4,000. Once you make this improvement, this environmental is much better than any, because the emission is close to zero. The marginal increase of consumption is zero, whilst you have much more possibility of transport. So in the future, I think you should look at this type of projects, because environmentally they give the best of all the performance. In any case, I know there are other talkers, so I leave you and I thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
And please, I would urge you to share with us for the corrected DIP, the source of your figures that are really impressive. So thank you very much for it. It's a very good place for shipping. Because you have 10 minutes. I should have said that beforehand. So you have 10 minutes.
Yeah, I will use the 10 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, very nice to see all of you here. First of all, I would actually like to express my thanks to and the importance of the need of the Motorways of the Sea. The Motorways of the Sea program is essential to secure a sustainable future and a sustainable development. For Stena Line, we can actually look forward, or actually saying thank you very much for a great cooperation when it's coming to both our scrubber projects, but also the methanol conversion of Stena Yamanica. And Stena Yamanica, she was converted into methanol 1.5 years ago. She's now she's reduced the sulfur and the air particles with 90%, 90. It was a cost of 22 million euro, and we are continuing looking into this project as a very good project. The next step we are taking when it's coming to Stena Yamanica